weird. I can write blogs, I can do radio interviews, I can talk quite openly in person about this, but sitting down in a room by myself, with only a camera, it feels quite different. I guess for those that don't know, I should explain a little bit about me and my depression. It started over 10 years ago now, but I didn't really realise at the time that that's truly what was going on with me. I was only diagnosed with depression in 2014. It's been something I've been battling on and off now for years. A few years back it sort of started to get really severe again. I'd suffer really badly with insomnia and get maybe 2-3 hours sleep at most each night. I would have nosebleeds constantly because of stress, waking up with crippling headaches, and just being able to smell and taste the blood. I think memory loss is one of the most upsetting side effects I've had with my depression. One of the hardest things was just trying to appear normal. You'd go to work or you'd just leave the house and you'd put this mask on. Even around sort of close friends and family, you'd pretend there was nothing going on. But you feel like it's a weakness. Sometimes I guess there's a shame to it. It's always been something that I've shut away from people, whether it's just not talking about it or actually physically hiding myself away in a room behind a closed door, and then often just breaking down, and then you'd have to wait 20 minutes, half an hour before you could sort of face people again. So my reasons for recording this video is that today, the 10th of October, is World Mental Health Day. Raising awareness of depression and various mental health issues is something that's really, really important to me. When I began sort of fundraising journey, it's always something that I intended to do a lot more than I have. In many ways I found it easier to run than I have to do the awareness. Not because I find it difficult talking about it, it's just I find it difficult getting people's attention. But personally I knew that not many people really had a clue what was going on with me. And I wanted to show that anyone can suffer with depression. You know, a lot has happened really since the last race in July. The therapy sessions I was having every week had stopped, and I'm still waiting to receive the appointments for the next sort of round of treatment that I'm getting. I decided whilst I was waiting to receive news on those that I'd go to the doctors and sort of discuss medication with them. There was a number of reasons why I was previously avoided it. I didn't want to just numb the issues, I wanted to explore where these were. They've been with me for over 10 years now, so if there is some issues there that need exploring, I wanted to find them. And rightly or wrongly, I guess, I was just afraid of having to rely on taking tablets for the rest of my life just to feel normal. After much convincing, the doctor prescribed me citalopram. Initially just a small dosage of 10 milligrams, but it has since been up to 20. It's kind of difficult really to know whether they're having much positive effects at this stage. The bad days don't seem to happen as frequently, but they still very much are there. I've also addressed some issues head on, and in many ways I feel that not going to therapy each week is helping. Whilst I can't say really whether they're having any positive effects, there's definitely been some side effects. In the first sort of few weeks I was experiencing headaches, increased sweating, insomnia, loss of energy, nausea, sleepiness, anxiety, itching, pins and needles, as well as some other things. So they're definitely having an effect on me. The main issue I've experienced so far is the fatigue. For the first 6 weeks I was just struggling to get out of bed on them. I hadn't been to the gym, I'd only managed to do a handful of runs, and it just felt awful. It would take until sort of midday, 1 o'clock, until I stopped yawning. When I began my 15 in 2015 race for Mind last year, it was meant to just be that. But by the end of the year I'd run 18 marathons and decided that I'd keep running until I'd reached my initial goals of the sort of fundraising target I'd set, and also just raising awareness for it. The last weekend of September saw me reach 2 milestones, running both my 40th marathon and my 30th marathon for Mind. The weekend began with a short trip on the train across to Saltaire for the Sir Titus Trot marathon. I had flashbacks to last year's infamous IAPT session when I found out that the registration was located in Victoria Hall. But thankfully this time the room was not empty. Living near the Leeds-Liverpool Canal means that I get to run along it quite a lot. And this race gave me the opportunity to explore some areas that I hadn't seen before. With 2 marathons in 2 days, I had planned to take the race quite steady, but a lack of training and the fatigue from the medication meant that I was feeling leggy really early on, and even just a short climb over locks felt like a big hill. By the halfway point I was already struggling. My pace had started to drop, and there was little in me to fight back. It soon just became a case of doing what I had to do to finish, whilst trying not to dwell too much on the fact that I'd have to do it all again the next day. In 2008 I ran the Robin Hood Half Marathon as my second ever race. Since then it's become a regular fixture on my calendar. All the race's elevation seemed to come within the first 6 miles, and any energy that I had left in my legs had gone by the time I got to the top of the third big climb. When the split came at halfway, it was very tough to keep going. My legs and my head were screaming at me to finish, but I knew I had to continue no matter what. The last 8 miles were very tough and included quite a lot of starting and stopping. I'd begun to feel nauseous, and every step only seemed to make it worse. I ended up stopping quite a few times to see if I could be sick, but I couldn't bring anything up. By the last few miles my pace had slowed so much it felt like I was barely moving. Runners were passing me, and I felt awful, both physically and mentally. I guess given the circumstances, I should have expected the races to be as tough as they were, and the relief I felt when I crossed the finish line felt almost as good as any PB. Typically I'd release the videos for those 2 races individually, but the anxiety I had sort of in the week leading up to that meant that not much of the footage really can be used. I was too anxious to talk in front of the camera, I was too anxious to record most of the race. Neither of the races really went that well, so I was digging deep and struggling to just complete them, so the idea of recording it was kind of secondary. When I began blogging about my illness 2 years ago, I mentioned how that I felt that there was a taboo about openly discussing depression. Over the years I've learnt that there's no shame in what's going on with me. It's something that affects many people, and But personally, the more you try to hide it up, the harder it is to deal with. I feel that many illnesses and conditions are widely spoken about and often displayed for everyone to see. But depression is something that people are made to feel guilty about and ashamed of. It's not something that should be hidden away. I hope that my blogging in this video helps people realise that this isn't something to be ashamed of. It's not something that defines you. A lot has happened really since the last race. Maybe not, it's my bollocks. It's not really going to look good, is it?